February, South Africa, city of Pretoria. POV of the victim, Reeva. The hot South African night wraps my skin in a humid, heavy, stifling heat, and even the open balcony brings not the slightest relief. I lie on the huge bed in his bedroom, feeling how the soft silk sheets pleasantly cool my overheated body. Tomorrow is February 14th, Valentine's Day, and in my mind, I am already picturing how we will spend it together, because we have only been dating for 3 months, but it feels like a lifetime has passed. Oscar is lying next to me, his breathing quiet and steady like a child's, while the moonlight from the window softly outlines the contours of his face. The whole world knows him as the Blade Runner, an Olympic hero, a man who defeated destiny itself and stood on carbon prosthetics to outrun those whom nature gave both legs. But I know him differently, as someone who snaps over small things, whose glance turns from gentle to icy in a split second, and from whom you sometimes just want to hide away and wait out the storm. 3 weeks ago, I sent him a text message confessing that I'm scared of him sometimes, and scared of how he might react to my words. He apologized as always, beautifully, tenderly, persuasively, and I believed him again because I want to believe in the best. My name is Reeva Steenkamp. I am 29 years old, a model, a law graduate, and an activist fighting against violence against women. What a bitter, unbearable irony lies hidden in those words. I, a fighter against violence, am lying next to a man whose outbursts of rage make my heart clench in primal fear. But right now, everything is quiet, and I allow myself to relax, listening to the night sounds outside the window of the massive mansion in the gated Silverwoods estate. I wake up because my bladder reminds me of itself, and quietly, trying not to wake him, I slip out from under the blanket. My bare feet touch the cool tile, and I tiptoe across the dark bedroom toward the bathroom. I enter the small toilet room inside the bathroom, pull the door shut behind me, and turn the latch, because it is a simple habit of any girl, locking the door behind her, even at home. Inside the tiny space, it smells of fresh tile and soap, while a barely noticeable night breeze pulls through the narrow window in the wall. And suddenly the silence of the night is shattered by his voice, sharp, raspy, filled with something animalistic and completely unrecognizable. He is screaming something, but I cannot make out the words because my heart instantly leaps into my throat and begins to pound wildly. I want to shout back that it's me, that there is no stranger here, that there is no need to be afraid. But in the very next second, the world explodes into a deafening roar that literally makes the walls tremble. The wooden door in front of me suddenly splinters from the inside, blasting a cloud of tiny, sharp wood chips into the air. The first bullet misses, embedding itself into the white tile wall, fragments fly off the tiles with a dry crack. The second enters my hip, and my leg is instantly flooded with a burning, throbbing pain that collapses me onto the cold floor. I scream his name, but my voice drowns in the ringing roar filling the tiny toilet space. The third bullet hits my arm, and I instinctively press it to my body, feeling hot, sticky blood pulsing through my fingers. I don't understand what is happening. I cannot believe this is reality and not some terrifying, feverish nightmare. The fourth shot thunders like a final clap of thunder, and the world around me goes out like a light bulb ruthlessly unscrewed from its socket. The last thing that flashes through my fading consciousness is an absurd, impossible thought. I am dying on Valentine's Day behind a locked bathroom door, killed by the man I loved. POV of the perpetrator, Oscar. I wake up in complete darkness from some sound, and my body is instantly covered in icy sweat. My heart begins to pound at a furious pace, and the first thought piercing my sleepy brain is that someone broke into my home. In South Africa, people get robbed, assaulted, and killed every single day. And I, a legless amputee, am lying in bed completely defenseless against any armed bastard. My carbon blades are standing somewhere to the side, but I am not thinking about them, because panic has already completely overwhelmed my mind. I feel under the bed for my gun, a 9mm Parabellum, and the grip settles comfortably and securely into my sweat-drenched palm. I don't look back at the bed. I don't check if Reeva is lying next to me, because in my head, only one red, deafening siren is raging. Survive. I am 26 years old, an Olympic athlete. I am used to winning, and I will not let some filthy intruder take my life away from me. Without my prosthetics, I hobble on my stumps across the dark bedroom, holding the gun in front of me with both trembling hands. I hear a noise from the bathroom, and adrenaline hits my head with such force that my temples begin to throb in a hot, painful wave. Someone locked themselves inside the toilet. It is definitely a burglar who climbed through the window. I am absolutely sure of it. I pull the trigger 4 times, and every shot echoes with a deafening roar in the enclosed hallway space. Gunpowder smoke hits my nose with a sharp, sour smell, and the ringing in my ears becomes so piercing that I stop hearing my own breathing. I stand in front of the splintered door, soaked in sweat with the gun in my shaking hands, waiting for an attack from the intruder. But behind the door, there is absolute dead silence. I call out to Reeva, calling her name once, twice, 3 times, but not a single sound comes from the bedroom. Icy terror begins to slowly rise from my stomach to my throat, squeezing my insides into a tight, painful knot. I rush back into the bedroom, fumble with my hands across the crumpled sheets, and cannot find her warm body. The bed is empty. No. I rush back to the bathroom and begin furiously smashing the door with a cricket bat, accompanying every blow with a wild, inhuman scream. The wood cracks and gives way, and when I finally see what lies on the blood-drenched floor of the tiny toilet, a sound escapes my throat that cannot be described in human language. Reeva is lying on the white tile, the entire floor flooded with her blood, and her eyes, those incredible, beautiful eyes that were laughing as they looked at me just last night, are now staring at the ceiling with a motionless, glassy glaze. I scoop her body up in my arms and hobble down the stairs, leaving a bloody, smeared trail behind me, and my scream echoes through the empty house, across the quiet night neighborhood, ripping terrified neighbors out of their sleep. I killed her. I killed the only woman who could have been my everything. POV of the neighbor, Michelle Berger. I am violently ripped from deep sleep by a piercing, inhuman scream that instantly sends icy chills down my entire body. It is a woman's voice, agonizing, desperate, blood-curdling. She is screaming as if she is being torn apart, and that scream takes my breath away. I nudge my husband's shoulder and whisper that someone is screaming, but he is already awake himself, his eyes wide with fear. We both freeze in the darkness of our bedroom, pressed against each other, listening to the night sounds. Then shots break out, 4 loud, dry cracks that slice through the silence like hammer blows on an anvil. After the shots, a brief, ringing silence follows, and then a man begins to scream. His voice is high-pitched, almost shrieking, filled with some animal terror and despair. We lie there, afraid to move, and with shaking fingers, I grab the phone and dial the estate security number. The line clicks, and in a shaky voice, I report that screams and gunfire were heard in one of the houses. A few minutes later, we hear sirens, and outside the window, alarming red and blue lights begin to flash. I still remember that woman's scream. It is forever stuck in my head, like a scratched record that cannot be stopped. POV of the paramedic. We receive a dispatch call from the elite gated Silverwoods estate at 3 a.m. Gunshot victim. We pull up to a large, expensive house, and the estate security guards wave their flashlights, pointing to the front entrance. On the porch stands a man without legs, wearing only shorts, completely covered in blood, holding the lifeless body of a young woman in his arms. He is sobbing so loudly and painfully that his voice breaks into a rasp, while tears and blood mix on his face into a horrific mask. I instantly recognize him. It is Oscar Pistorius, a South African sports legend, the man whose face is featured on every second billboard in Pretoria. We carefully take the body from his arms and place it on a gurney, but one look is enough for me to realize we are too late. Multiple gunshot wounds, massive blood loss, no pulse, and no breathing. I record the time of death and slowly pull a white sheet over her face, while behind me, the Olympic hero crawls on his knees across his own lawn, howling like a wounded animal. He vomits right onto the neatly manicured grass, and between bouts of vomiting, he endlessly repeats the exact same sentence. I thought it was an intruder. POV of the investigator. We arrive at the crime scene in the Silverwoods estate, and the first thing that catches your eye is a huge, luxurious mansion surrounded by high walls, security cameras, and alarms. This residence is a real fortress, and that immediately raises serious questions in my mind regarding the version of an accidental break-in by a burglar. We walk up the stairs to the second floor and enter the bedroom, where crumpled, blood-soaked sheets lie on a massive bed. Further down the hallway is the bathroom, and there a sight awaits us that makes even experienced forensic investigators involuntarily look away. The small toilet room inside the bathroom looks like a battlefield. The wooden door is shattered to pieces. Dark red puddles and splatters of blood are everywhere on the white tile. 4 bullet holes in the door are positioned at human torso height. Someone fired blindly through a locked wooden door. We recover 9mm bullets from the walls and from the victim's body, and ballistics unequivocally confirms they were fired from a handgun registered in Oscar Pistorius' name. On the bathroom floor, we find Reeva Steenkamp's mobile phone. An expert examination will later show that she did not dial the police or call an emergency hotline. This means one of 2 things. Either everything happened in an instant and she had no time to call for help, or she did not perceive the situation as an attack until the very last moment. We interrogate Pistorius, and he tells his version. Woke up, heard a noise, assumed it was a burglar, grabbed his gun, fired through the door. But his version falls apart before our eyes when we cross-reference the testimony of neighbors who've heard a woman screaming before the gunshots, not after. If it was a burglar, why was a woman screaming? If Reeva was sleeping in bed, how did she end up in a locked toilet in the middle of the night? And the main question that haunts me: what sane person shoots 4 times through a locked door without even attempting to call out to whoever is behind it? POV of the perpetrator in court. Oscar. March of 2014. And I am sitting in the defendant's dock at the High Court in Pretoria, while the lenses of dozens of TV cameras dig into my face like hungry parasites. The whole world is watching this trial because just 2 years ago, I was a symbol of overcoming fate, living proof that a human being can achieve anything. And now I sit here, hunched over, shaking as if from malarial chills. Prosecutor Jerry Nell, thin, calm, with the icy gaze of a python, methodically dissects my every word, my every gesture, every single second of that cursed night. pulls printouts of text messages between Reeva and me from a folder and begins reading them aloud to the entire courtroom. Her words hit me like fists. I'm scared of you sometimes and of how you snap at me. She wrote that to me 3 weeks before her death, and the courtroom freezes in a heavy, suffocating silence. The prosecutor asks why I fired 4 times in a row through a locked door, since after the first shot, any normal burglar would have already fled through the window. I try to explain about the panic, the adrenaline, the fear of a legless man before a night intrusion, but my words sound dull and unconvincing even to myself. Reeva's mother, June Steenkamp, sits in the front row of the gallery, and her motionless, stony gaze makes me want to sink through the floor of the courtroom. She lost her daughter, a beautiful, smart, 29-year-old lawyer and model who fought for women's rights and dreamed of changing the world for the better. And with my own hands, I turned her dreams into nothing. And now even the most expensive lawyer cannot put those pieces back together. Judge Thokosile Masipa delivers the initial verdict. Guilty of culpable homicide, 6 years. But the Supreme Court reviews the case and upgrades the charge to murder. 13 years and 5 months behind bars. Atteridgeville Correctional Center in Pretoria. Concrete walls, a narrow cot, a steel door with a peephole, and an eternal, unceasing hum of voices, screams, and clanging metal. My carbon blades, which once carried me to Olympic glory, now stand in the corner of the cell, covered in prison dust. I was on top of the world, adored by millions, and little boys across Africa dreamed of becoming just like me. And now I am a murderer, spending my days in a concrete box. And the only thing I see when I close my eyes is white tile flooded with the blood of the woman I said I loved. Every night I dream of that door, and every night I hear 4 gunshots that forever destroyed 2 lives at once. Hers and mine.
Summary of dry facts. Let us set emotions aside and turn to the dry protocols and official records of this high-profile case. The victim, Reeva Rebecca Steenkamp, 29 years old, model, TV presenter, and law graduate from Cape Town. The perpetrator, Oscar Leonard Carl Pistorius, 26 years old at the time of the crime, Paralympic and Olympic athlete known worldwide by the nickname Blade Runner. The date, February 14, 2013, Valentine's Day, city of Pretoria, South Africa. The crime scene, Pistorius's private mansion in the elite-gated Silverwoods country estate. Pistorius was born with congenital absence of the fibula in both legs and underwent bilateral below knee amputation at the age of 11 months. Despite his disability, he became an outstanding sprinter, won multiple Paralympic gold medals, and made history as the first double amputee athlete to compete in the London Olympic Games in 2012. On the night of February 14th, Pistorius fired 4 shots from a 9mm handgun through a locked wooden toilet door, behind which Reeva was located. 3 bullets struck the victim, in the head, arm, and hip, causing her instantaneous death. The defense claimed that Pistorius mistook Reeva for a burglar and shot in self-defense, not wearing his prosthetics and feeling extremely vulnerable. The prosecution maintained that an argument occurred between the couple, and Reeva locked herself in the toilet to escape an angry Pistorius. Neighbors testified in court that they heard a woman screaming before the gunshots. Analysis of the couple's text messages revealed that 90% of their messages were loving, but in the remaining 10%, Reeva wrote that she was scared of his outbursts of rage. In 2014, the court initially found Pistorius guilty of culpable homicide. However, in 2015, the Supreme Court of Appeal reviewed the sentence and upgraded the conviction to murder, imposing a sentence of 13 years and 5 months. Pistorius served his sentence at Atteridgeville Correctional Center and was released on parole on January 5, 2024. Currently, he is under strict parole supervision, required to attend anger management and violence prevention programs, and his sentence formally expires in December 2029. Reeva's mother, June Steenkamp, established the Reeva Foundation, which continues her daughter's legacy in protecting women from domestic violence. Psychological analysis. Take a deep breath and slowly, fully exhale to shake off this heavy, oppressive aftermath. What you have just experienced with us is not fictional drama, but a reconstruction of documented, real events. Let us together try to understand what exactly happened in the mind of the man who pulled the trigger. In criminal psychology, the Pistorius case stands apart because it cannot be fitted into a conventional domestic murder framework. Here we see a complex cocktail of several explosive factors: deep, years-accumulated anxiety of an amputee in one of the most dangerous countries in the world, the habit of handling firearms as an everyday tool of protection, and an explosive narcissistic temperament of a man accustomed to winning and controlling everything around him. The text message exchanges with Reeva expose a classic pattern of emotional abuse, a cycle of tenderness, outburst, apology, tenderness that repeated again and again, slowly eroding the victim's boundaries. When Reeva wrote, "I'm scared of you," it was a direct, desperate warning signal that their relationship dynamics had long crossed healthy boundaries. Regardless of whether this murder was intentional or a tragic mistake, one fact remains indisputable. 4 shots fired through a locked door without a single attempt to call out to whoever was inside is not self-defense, but blind, uninhibited aggression. A person who shoots 4 times in a row without asking questions is someone who has long been accustomed to solving problems through force rather than words. And the most terrifying aspect of this story is watching how an idol of millions, a symbol of courage and triumph, was in reality a fragile, broken man whose paranoia and obsession with control ultimately consumed him from the inside, taking the life of an innocent woman with him. Author's comment and outro. On our channel, we continue to assemble tiny, cozy room boxes with our own hands, creating safe miniature worlds out of cardboard, wood, and glue. But the story of Oscar Pistorius reminds us that even the most luxurious and fortified homes do not guarantee safety if the threat lives not outside but inside. Our mission remains unchanged. We completely de-romanticize crime, showing that behind shiny Olympic medals and sponsorship contracts, a darkness can hide that is capable of destroying everything in its path. Oscar was not a tragic hero. He was a man who failed to learn how to handle his own demons, and the price of that failure was catastrophic. Remember, if your partner makes you write the sentence, "I'm scared of you," that is not a minor thing, not a joke, and not a trifle. It is a red line that cannot be ignored. This was the Victim Path Project, where we descend to the very bottom of human darkness, only to learn how to truly see and appreciate the light. If this episode resonated with you, support our work and write the secret word BLADE in the comments, so we can recognize those who walked this path with us to the very end. Take care of yourself and your loved ones, trust your intuition, and until next time.